Hi, this is Greg Maddox, and you're listening to Out of Left Field on the Grueling Truth Network.
Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris back here with you once again. Chris's final show.
What?
On vacation. Hold on. All you people out there, they're laughing right now and are thankful that Chris. How rude! The pregnant pause was just there for effect, and now we have people being so happy that Chris is leaving. Chris is not leaving. All right, he's just going to go on a cruise, Jamaica, down that way, then be back in a couple of weeks. So shame on you people. Shame on all you.
I really feel like you baited them, though.
Hey, that was bait. Hey, this is not about me. This is not about me.
It's not about you.
You know what? Look, just put the ball in play.
All right, let's put the ball in play. Well, it's finally over. Bryce Harper has finally signed a contract. 13 years, $330 million. Mind you, Bryce Harper is 26.
That's not a contract, sir. That's not a contract, sir. That goes well beyond the word contract.
I think there's a crossroads demon somewhere collecting a soul.
That is a life partnership, right? He just signed a life partnership agreement with the Philadelphia Phillies. 13 years, $330 million, the biggest free agent numerical contract, but he still will not be the highest annually paid player. That will go to the aforementioned Nolan Arenado, who we talked about last week for the Colorado Rockies and his new deal.
Right. So 13 years, $330 million. Bryce Harper's 26 years old. That means he's got a job till he's 39. Good for him. I wish I had that kind of stability, and I'm 36. So, look, we all know that this is not a good. We all know this is not a good deal for anyone, right? He's 13 years, no opt-outs, no way out of this contract for anybody, and all of this money is guaranteed. So
and the worst part is that the Phillies made him the Saddam Hussein of baseball. Their Twitter feed said after the deal, quote, "We got him." No, bad choice right there, Philly fan. Now, I understand this was a bad choice by both people in the last couple of days. The Philly Twitter feed, no bueno. Bryce saying, "I can't wait to bring a championship back to D.C." No bueno.
We got him as one of those faux pas that's right up there with George W. Bush saying, "We're going to go over there and we're going to conduct a crusade." Wait, hold on. Everybody calm down. That's not what we're doing.
What was it when something, I don't remember, President Obama said something. He was on the Daily Show when Jon Stewart was still hosting, and we're on a big tangent, but whatever. And he said something about, "Man, this guy's doing a heck of a job." And Jon Stewart said, "I wouldn't say that, bro. Don't say that, dude." And there's all this grief about, Jon Stewart saying dude or bro or whatever it was to the president. And Obama was like, "I've got bigger things in my life to worry about than a guy calling me dude." And they're all laughing.
I've got more pressing issues in my life than whether or not Jon Stewart just called me bro.
But anyway, yeah. So back to the contract itself.
Sure.
We've talked about our thoughts ad nauseum, and we're not going to rehash our thoughts. At the end of the day, it's a great potential move for Philadelphia, and their window is now wide open. But to me, that window is wide open, but it's also rapidly closing at the same time, which is kind of an odd juxtaposition of points.
It's like somebody throwing up a window that doesn't stay.
Yeah. And it's
it's open, but it's coming down.
Right. A lot of youth on that team. To me, this deal there is a similarity between this deal and the overall Cubs franchise, not in the fact that they have signed a big name free agent for a massive contract, but it's the same look, right? The Cubs are based off of a lot of young talent with some veteran pieces around it to make themselves, hopefully long-term contenders. It didn't happen, right? They won one World Series, and since then it's kind of been a bit of a funk the last couple of years. this is what Philadelphia is going to be, only it's going to be rabid. Chicago were kind of the lovable losers who you wanted to finally see the curse broke. Philadelphia is just not lovable. I mean, I mean, they're going to be down his throat. But if he produces, he'll be beloved. And he started off, and I made the joke about the bringing a championship back to DC. Look, you and I have made plenty of faux pas and jacked up things, that edit out things we've said that are stupid. In listening to the show back, we have said the wrong team name and goofy stuff. But at the end of it, Bryce Harper made what I thought was one of the classiest moves that I have heard a player in general, but especially him, make in the time we've been doing this show. And he will don the number 3 with the Philadelphia Phillies this year, instead of his traditional number 34, which he has worn, for his entire career in DC. But there was a very specific reason why he did not want that number emblazoned on his back. And it was because the late, great Hall of Famer Roy Halladay wore that number when he threw a perfect game, when he threw a no-hitter in the same season for the Philadelphia Phillies. And Harper said that he believes that Halladay should be the last one to wear that number. And I think that statement alone will, at least I hope, will go a long way and finally convince that organization to retire that number the same way that Toronto retired his number 32 this past year.
And Toronto's retirement, his number, correct me if I'm wrong, was temporary, right?
The Phillies temporarily retired it last year. They assigned it to a catcher who said he didn't feel comfortable wearing it. He wanted it to kind of that's a lot of history behind that number. And then when the unfortunate passing of Doc happened, the Phillies retired it for a season, but did not retire it full blown. The Blue Jays did hang it up in the rafters of the stadium north of the border last year when his 2 sons and his wife were there for the honor.
Yeah, and I'd like to see Philadelphia to go ahead and retire that number. So we can talk about Bryce Harper. We have, and we probably will again in the future. Because
we're on that topic, I want to ask you, should the White Sox retire Mark Burley's number for the same reason? Threw a no-hitter, threw a perfect game for the same team, a long-time piece there before he went to Miami, then Toronto, and kind of just fell off. They may have already done it. I actually have to look. I think they actually may have done that last year, but I wonder if he's kind of the same kind of piece, right?
Right. So
anyway,
I think that the only thing we can do now is talk about what this might mean for the Phillies. And as much as I go over it and over it and over it, and I look at Bryce Harper's numbers and I look at Bryce Harper as a whole ball player, essentially for me, what this means for the Phillies is a game or two. This is not win the National League East kind of a win the National League East kind of signing. Now, pair it with Real Muto and who else? They picked up some big names.
McCutchen,
Hoskins,
Odubel Herrera,
Gene Segura.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a potent lineup, and maybe with guys like that around him, like he had in 2015, where he had big bats around him, and people have to throw at Harper. Maybe he's going to do well, but my question comes in: how long can this last? A season, 2? I mean, we all know that McCutchen's done. We know that Gene Segura,
because he really flourished, for his age, he played really well in New York. So I think having pieces around him, and he will be a leadoff guy. But
what I mean is, his career is behind him.
Well, sure. I mean, he's definitely halfway down the third baseline.
That's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying he's not going to do well this year. What I'm saying is long term. This is a 13-year contract.
To me, the first thing I honestly think, and this kind of, and I don't know how it'll work money-wise, the issue to me is how willing are the Phillies front office to go into the luxury tax. Because you're going to, you're looking at a guy who's going to make $26 million annually, which is, that's well over 10% of your overall cap. To me, the person my mind first runs to is Corey Kluber. Was talked about being traded during the offseason, did not happen. He's going to have a contract that is going to come up very soon. That is the guy to me who you look at to maybe try and move in behind Nola or maybe in front of Nola, and then Arrieta slowly kind of moves out of the fold. Possibly a Trevor Bauer. But there are a lot of guys here that I think hell, he's still out there is Dallas Keuchel. A guy who has not gotten a lot of love, has not gotten a big look from anybody. Surprised that Houston hasn't gone out and tried to make that move since Morton is gone. But Keuchel is a guy who could round out, kind of that 3-4 spot for you. But they're going to have to get a big-name pitcher here in the next couple of years. Nola is great, but the question is how much is it going to take to keep him once this newer deal we discussed last week, a week prior, finishes up. It's obviously there is no deal that's going to keep a player there as long as Harper is currently there. But I think to me, that's the big thing. Hoskins, let's see what he does. If it continues, he's going to be re-signed.
Just out of curiosity, is it not questionable to anyone else that Jake Arrieta, Rhys Hoskins, and Bryce Harper all use the same agent and all signed with the Phils?
Well, Arrieta was with the Phillies last year. Hoskins was drafted, and Harper now gets there. And Harper was courted by a lot of people. So
you have Arrieta and Hoskins and now Harper, all clients of Scott Boras, all with the Phillies organization.
You want my honest opinion? I don't think Boras gives a bleep. He will get the most money wherever he can for whomever he can. He doesn't give a damn. He is not. I do not see a team, with guys from that are part of his clientele. A lot of guys under his clientele.
Was Boras the one that said that he was going to get Bryce Harper the most money anyone has ever gotten? Was that him?
Probably.
It's just interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail it like that, but
I don't think so. But at the same time, Dan Lebitard had. I think it was the former Marlins GM who made those comments that we lambasted a month or so ago, and or land-blasted if my mom, she'll probably smack me for that later. But yes, she used the word land-blasted. Anyway, yeah, I know. I love you. You love my mom, but she and my wife are very. I found something. My wife and my mom and exactly what I'm talking about.
The grammatical mistakes are going to be there,
but they're so lovable, right?
Yes.
They kind of make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. But anyway, they were talking about Boras and his relationship with Jose Fernandez and how, really when Fernandez passed, he's kind of like, okay, well, that's one more name off my list. I got to find someone. And there was a very cold, calculated way that he approached things. And never, there was no, he didn't show a friendship. And I get this is a business relationship. But, that's do we expect much different from a guy like him or a Drew Rosenhaus in the NFL? That's, it's GM said that they like dealing with those guys because they're very matter of fact. They've been down this road for a long time. So look, what's it going to take? Let's get a deal done. Let's go. It's not like the new guys who, take a lot of working around and make it difficult. But no, I do not think that he is a guy who really gives a hoot where player A is compared to player B. He just wants to get whatever he can for these guys and make his cut.
So let's look
33 million is a nice cut.
Let's look at what the direct impact of Bryce Harper is on this team. In my opinion, it adds another bat that forces pitchers to pitch to hitters. Now, I wanted to listen to what the likely lineup, a realistic opening day lineup for the Philadelphia Phillies actually looks like.
Sure.
If Cesar Hernandez, right? Second baseman, is going to lead off.
Okay.
Followed up by Bryce Harper, Gene Segura.
I see Keuchel 1 or 2.
I have Keuchel at 6.
Okay.
And here's why. Harper at 2, Segura at 3. The real power guy, Rhys Hoskins.
Absolutely there, yeah.
JT Realmuto at 5. That's your next. That's your middle of the lineup leadoff guy. Keuchel behind him, followed by Odubel Herrera and Michael Franco.
I like Segura at 2 because he's a contact guy, and Harper at 3 makes the most sense to me because putting Hoskins and Realmuto behind him makes him formidable there.
Here's why not. Gene Segura is a right-handed hitter. Hoskins is a right-handed hitter. Realmuto is a right-handed hitter. Keuchel is a right-handed hitter. Now, normally I would never put 4 righties in a lineup next to each other. However, Gene Segura hits 14 points higher against righties than he does against lefties as a right-handed hitter.
Right.
Realmuto hits 40 points higher against righties than he does against lefties.
Really?
As a right-handed hitter, yes. So I want those two facing righties. And if I get to keep Gene Segura in the 3 slot, the contact guy, and Bryce Harper's base running ability, right, his speed on the bases, and I get to keep Realmuto behind a power guy, even though he's a righty, he hits well against righties, which means he's going to get on base for McCutcheon. It's like putting a guy who hits righties well, a lefty, in front of a righty, even though he's a righty, because they hit righties better than they do lefties, even as right-handed hitters. I know. I said right and left a lot of times, and you look a little bit confused.
Because you didn't – I mean, there wasn't even a cadence there. Like my feet are all – I had to change step 3 different times to get back in step.
That's because there are only 2 left-handed hitters in this whole lineup, sir. Bryce Harper and Odubel Herrera. And realistically, though, if you look at those names and you look at those guys, that might be.
Oh, the name power is fantastic.
That could be the deepest 1 through 8 lineup in the league.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's. I mean, coming off the top just with the name power, no doubt. Now, how they produce, we'll see.
Right.
To me, I think McCutcheon is your wild card, and I think you might see him move a little bit. I do kind of like him up a little bit in the in the lineup. I just don't like the idea of having Harper 2 because you can work around Harper to get to Segura. Segura's a great hitter, but I want Harper sitting right in front of your 2 big bats in Hoskins and Realmuto. I still think Harper makes more sense at 3, but that's something we can discuss later on as it continues. Either way, it's a record deal. It's a huge grab for the Phillies. At least now, free agency is for the most part over. A couple things will happen here and there, but the big key.
Dallas Keuchel is still our big name, right?
What's that?
Keuchel's still our big name.
I think so. Yeah, probably the biggest name out there. I mean, a former Cy Young winner, but we've seen a big drop off from him. I mean, dude, this really has been a week of historical things, right? We get the Harper deal, but even more. And look, we really pride ourselves in being a show that we love the game of baseball, but we love what everything kind of represents and what it is more than just the individual professional level. And that brings us to one of probably the coolest moments I think we've seen from any sport in a long time. And this brings us to college softball. Danielle Gibson, a sophomore for the Arkansas Razorbacks, completed a feat that has never happened in professional baseball. She hit for the home run cycle. A solo shot, a 2-run shot, a 3-run shot, and a slam, all in the same game against, and I believe it was against South Carolina, and I have to double check on that. It looks like it might have been, but I have to double check. But, this is probably one of the best things since Brock Holt had the cycle, right? Hit for the cycle against the Yankees in the postseason. But, man, this is pretty doggone cool. And when we'll post a link from ESPNW on their Twitter page, we'll post the link up to our Facebook page, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook, as well as our our Facebook page, Out of Left Field, Chris and Graham, and our Twitter page, @Left Field, as well. And it gets you, just real quick, shows you all 4 shots. We are trying to reach out to the University of Arkansas and have Danielle on. I haven't heard anything back yet. Obviously, they're middle of the season, but we are trying to get her on because, we had our awesome Women in Baseball special a couple of years ago, which was great, with Jen Powell and and a couple of other women. It was just really, really cool. So hopefully we get a chance to have her on and talk about how her season is, but also just what it was like to hit. She is the Big Al of the NCAA softball season. She went up there and she just hit dangers.
Yeah, well, and let's subtract the fact that she hit the home run cycle, which is amazing, but she has no control over that. She can't control who gets on base in front of her. Nobody can, right? Let's talk about the fact that she hit 4 home runs in a game, and only 18 Major League Baseball players have ever done that, ever.
Yeah.
So
the most was Scooter Jeanette, right? I believe that.
So, yeah. But aside from the fact that she managed to do this with enough people on base each time to go through this home run cycle, let's not take away from the fact that she put the ball over the fence 4 times in a single game. And Major League guys don't do that. It's more rare than a perfect game.
And and her swing is incredible. For being, a soft, and I don't want to say this in a way of where, it's a softball swing, but, so many times we are used to a softball swing being like Ichiro, right? Which is just, it's how it's designed because of the
reach out and poke it.
Yeah, being 60-foot bases, it is very much, you're always trying to get in that running start, and it's like a swinging bunt almost. And she just, stayed in there, turned the hips, and just connected. And it was a beautiful 4 swings. Really in there. No real big leg kick. She just stays with it and turns on it. So, not trying to break down what she's doing, but
and we've all seen Major League Baseball players look at softball pitchers, go up against softball pitchers and strike out on 3 pitches. A-Rod did it.
Keuchel, I think, did it in the cage.
Did it. Christian Yelich did it recently in a cage.
And granted, they're letting these pitchers pitch from what would be the circle, right? They're not pitching from the 60-foot, 6-inch mound, but they are pitching from the distance of a circle on a 60-foot softball field. But it's very different. And having umpires in softball, the ball rises.
Right.
You're used to everything kind of,
which is
hailing away
an illusion in baseball.
Down. Yeah. And we have seen some fastballs that have some really insane run up, just really trippy. But they what these pitchers can do is really, really impressive. And just, again, our hats off to Danielle Gibson. An amazing feat, and we hope to have her on the show. But even more so, really hope that Arkansas softball has a great year, that everyone stays healthy, that she stays healthy, and they find their way into the Women's College Softball World Series as well. Coming back into Major League Baseball, a couple of free agent signings, nothing massive, but do have a couple of minor league deals with some former Major League players that occurred this week. Both players will have an opt-out at the tail end of March, opt-out on March 22nd, I believe, 21st or 22nd, depending on really when their team's last game is. But the St. Louis Cardinals have agreed to a $1.5 million deal with catcher Matt Wieters, formerly of the Baltimore Orioles, of course, most recently the Washington Nationals. And the Blue Jays have signed my buddy Bud Norris. Really happy to see him finally getting picked up. Just got married this past December. Great dude. And his opt-out will be March 21st if he doesn't end up getting a major league slot. Bud is a guy who, we honestly very rarely talk baseball when I see him. But in what little we have, he's comfortable with the fact that his starting days are behind him. He's a bullpen guy, but he can be an effective bullpen guy. He can be, a long reliever. He can be a closer. He's been around multiple slots in that bullpen, most recently for the Cardinals last year. So I'm excited to see him go there. The Wieters thing, man, that is a big – I don't want to say a fall from grace. I think that's the wrong way to put it. But from it's a big fall from expectation. Is that better?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, with a guy like Yadier Molina, who apparently is going to just play catcher for 20 years and never not play catcher, which most catchers don't do, right? You don't get to sit and squat for 20 years and then act like you're still 19 years old, which apparently Yadier Molina is going to do.
Craig Biggio was a catcher, then second baseman, then outfielder, he changed incessantly.
Yeah, no, I think Yadier Molina is going to be a 40-something-year-old catcher and still have one of the best pop times in Major League Baseball. But
see the Tom Brady of baseball?
I mean, as far as somebody doing a job that –
not by importance of position, but just –
but as far as somebody doing a job –
at peak level at that age that makes no logical sense.
Yeah, I think
because Buster still has a couple of gallons left in the knees.
Yeah, he does, and I think Buster's probably going to finish out his career in his natural position at first base, which is where he started his career. Not his Major League Baseball career, but where he started out in college.
Yeah, what about the story that he got pulled into his coach's office at Florida State? Like, hey, I want you to try this, and he kind of just got converted into a catcher and was massively effective.
Yeah, essentially is exactly what happened. And if he plays every position on the field. In fact, he very famously played all 9 positions in a single game at one point.
Really?
At Florida. Yeah, he did. He's just an incredibly talented baseball player, but we're not talking about him right now. We're talking about 36-year-old.
Chris Furry passing up a chance to talk Buster Posey.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at his signed jersey right now. Don't get me wrong. I apologize. But
it will burn in flames as you speak.
But Yadier Molina is only 6 months older than me. He's 36 years old, almost 37 years old. And he's one of the top catchers in the game still.
So why are you so ugly?
At the position. What?
What?
Oh, man. Why does it always got to be about me? Stop with your beard envy. Yadier Molina is going to be that guy.
Fair enough.
So, yes, I think Yadier Molina could effectively be called the – God, I wish there was a better guy to call him than I wish there was a better guy to call him than that. But yes. And sitting behind Yadier Molina, if he has another season like he's had, I mean, when is he gonna play? He's gonna play every couple of days, maybe. Yeah. Every 5-6 days, maybe. And look, I bet about right about now, the Kansas City Royals had wished that they knew what was going on in their lineup while he was still a free agent. We'll get to that in a little bit, but
see, the issue with Wieters is, I mean, a guy who he's kind of felt some injuries the last few years, right? 2015 right. Played in 75 games. Last year played in 76 games. It was only the Nationals for 2 years.
He's going to play in 4.
Right. You know, and a guy, I mean, we're talking a career 251 hitter. He hit 238 last year, 135 career home runs, so not a lot of pop in his bat. But a guy who, you know, he's kind of a 2-to-1 strikeout to walk guy. You know, I mean, last year, 30 walks to 45 strikeouts. That was actually impressive. The year prior, when he played in 123 games, he had 38 walks to 94 strikeouts, so a little bit more than 2-to-1. But a 4-time All-Star, you know, it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, he hasn't crested 20 home runs since 2013. The closest he got was his last year in Baltimore, where he hit 17. Then the Nationals signed him, and it went to absolute crap, which blew you and me away. And we understood that Wilson Ramos got injured, but the fact they moved on from Ramos to Wieters, and then Ramos ends up being, you know, just an all-star, would have been a starter last year, goes to Philly, now I believe in New York with the Mets. It's just that Wieters did not – unfortunately, the expectations that were placed upon him, he met for a pretty good chunk of time during his rookie contract, but since then it has not been that impressive.
Right. And it's just he's not the defender that he should be at this time, right? He's not great in pitch framing. He's a good blocker. He's got a good arm.
32% caught stealing.
Right. And I think his overall ability to manage a pitching staff is pretty good. But his hitting is down. His overall defensive numbers are down. He's just not the guy he should be at this point in his career. I think the deal that he signed made sense, but I also feel like it's not the deal that a Matt Wieters should be getting. Like, Matt Wieters should be a better player getting a better deal.
Well, mind you, I mean, if we talk his first 4 years, right, 96 games his rookie year, up, and we'll go through 2012, which 11 and 12 were his first 2, and obviously back-to-back All-Star years. You're looking at a guy whose offensive WAR from 9 to 12 was, in respect, a 1.2, a 1.9, a 3.2, and a 3.1. And his defensive WAR, respectively, was a 0.7, then a 1.6, a 3.0, and a 1.9. 3.0 D-WAR as a catcher is phenomenal. And he barely, after 2012, cracked 1 again. He cracked 1 in 2016, his last year in Baltimore, at a 1.1. Went to Washington. His first year in Washington, his offensive WAR was a negative 0.7.
Right.
It's just, I mean, he is, and this is a very rough description for a guy who's still playing, but he is kind of your defensive Sonny Gray.
Right.
A ton of upside, a ton of expectation, and it's just not showing up.
The question mark for me comes in when he's going to have to go up against Francisco Pena for this second spot, right? And Pena had a decent season last year. He only played in a couple of games. He had like 11 at-bats, but 11 at-bats with 5 hits and 3 ribbies. It seems like, hey, Francisco Pena might have a little bit of an upside here as far as as far as sorry, that's his numbers this year. But his 2018, he hit 216, right? He played in 86 games and or 58 games, and I see Francisco Pena as a young kid with a little bit of upside, whereas Matt Wieters, who realistically is about the same age, I guess, is just sort of falling off this huge precipice from where I think we should have seen him. I don't know if he can beat Pena for this second place job, despite Pena falling off a little bit in his hitting from last year to the year before. I'd really like to see, honestly, Matt Wieters put up a huge fight, challenge for this second spot, get to the major league level, right? Because nobody wants to see Matt Wieters in AAA.
Sure.
Get to the major league level and be the number 2 guy that Molina is probably going to need. Molina only played 123 games last year.
Yeah.
I realize Yadier Molina is going to play till he's 40 and he's going to play catcher till he's 40. But let's be honest, Yadier Molina is going to need days off. And if you're going to put a guy behind the dish who's not Yadier Molina for the St. Louis Cardinals, it has to be a guy who they can count on. I don't know if Matt Wieters can be that guy, but I'd like to see him make a run at being that guy.
I'm good with that analysis, and I don't think you're wrong. I think what I hope for more is a really strong spring showing, maybe some interest from other teams where he can maybe choose to opt out of that deal and find himself a permanent starter home. If not, St. Louis is a great place to be because it's an organization that is extremely well run, and I think will take him somewhere that he really, I think, will flourish and needs to be, and can probably find himself a full-time home next year if he does well with St. Louis this year in that role.
I will say this: Francisco Pena, the number 2 from last year, is having a heck of a spring training so far. Okay. I know we're not very far in, but he's 11 at bats, 5 hits, 3 ribbies. He's hitting .455 with an OPS of 1, right?
And keep in mind, guys, as we say these numbers, there's a lot of backfield work happening. It's what I had the chance to work some of that. It's really cool, And on a personal note, it is really great to see that Aaron Barrett is back with the Nationals after I mentioned I umpired a game with him after he had Tommy John surgery, broke his elbow pitching about a week after. He's back at the Nationals, and oh goodness gracious, the name of the pitcher. Keep going. Let me search his name so I don't get it wrong, and then I will look for that. Just give me 1 second.
Talking about the guy that had the aneurysm for the Yankees back.
It's Danny Farquhar, isn't it?
Right, Farquhar. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago that he was back.
Yeah, he threw finally. He threw finally.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, got 1 out of 6 batters. So he said, not a great outing, but for him to be out there after suffering a brain aneurysm in the dugout of the White Sox. Huge tip, just from all of us here at the network, especially at the show, welcome back, and how awesome it is to see, we had him, we had Tayon, we had the pitcher for the Rockies, whose name escapes me at this moment, who's been through, obviously, the last 2 went through cancer treatment. How great it is to see those guys back and able to do well. So, or at least kind of be in that spot. So great to see Aaron back and the rest. On the flip side, go ahead, man.
What do you see Bud Norris doing for the Cardinals? I mean, he's been a starter, he's been a reliever, he's been a closer.
I think as far as the Jays go, it's a really weird, not a weird fit, but it's one of those things that the Jays are in need of so much that, I don't know, man. I mean, you have Stroman back. I think at the end with how light their bullpen is, he makes sense as a middle to long reliever. They have Giles there as the closer. That's not going to change. to me, Bud makes the most sense as a long reliever who you can, if necessary, flex him into a start or two. You don't want to. He's a guy with an ERA over 4. I'm not gonna. I won't make excuses saying that he hadn't had his struggles, but to me, he is a guy that provides you some really nice bullpen flexibility if you need to chew up some innings. And having been in Atlanta as a starter is at least comfortable holding a bat, and you can use him beyond an inning or two if his slot comes up at the plate if you're going into extras.
The interesting thing is, right, that they get Norris at a sort of interesting time in this offseason.
Because they have Buchholz too. You get Clay
Buchholz
fit that starter role. So I think that's why Bud makes so much sense in the pen, because Clay, who signed a full-blown MLB deal 1 year with Toronto, will go into probably that 3 or 4 role for Toronto.
I think it's probably a fair assessment. I think I like Bud Norris in that long reliever role. I think that guy that comes in, right, if your starter gets in trouble, he can come in early. He can go 3 or 4 innings for you if you need him to.
Right.
And I think that's an important piece to have. Not a lot of teams have guys like that. A lot of teams
especially the
run
AL,
into trouble.
to get from the 4th inning into the 6th or 7th with the same guy is invaluable in today's game.
Right. But it's really good. This pickup of Clay Buchholz is really good too, in my opinion, because I think that having seen Buchholz play here in Arizona, right, having actually watched him play here in Arizona, he was he was the Diamondbacks' best pitcher.
Clay was 7-2 last year, and before we get there,
2.01 ERA. Let's not forget.
And before we get further, I had a chance to talk with him at the golf tournament when he was out there playing. Great dude. Let's have a listen to what he had to say. I asked him, obviously, where he thought he was going to go, and a couple other things. Have a listen. A great guy. You'll love the interview. A couple minutes here with Clay Buchholz on Out of Left Field, Chris and Graham. Have a listen. Here with Clay Buchholz. Clay, I want to ask you first off, what's the year hold for you right now?
Last year was a little bit different way, roundabout way to get to a team and everything, but performed pretty good whenever I got picked up by the Diamondbacks, and just looking for a new home right now, and not gonna press or stress about anything. Just let it run its course, and we'll figure it out here sooner or later.
You've been in a few different types of markets, right? Boston, then Philadelphia, and then Arizona last year. We know we got 2 big names still looking for new homes, and Manny and also Bryce. What are the differences in places like Boston and Philly compared to a smaller market like in Arizona, where the fans are still rabid, but it's not quite the same coverage in the field that you get in those kind of places?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it all stems from media. Being in Boston for 10 some odd years, it's a sports mecca. So it's, if the Red Sox aren't doing good, they have the Patriots to root for. If the Patriots and Red Sox aren't doing good, they have the Celtics or the Bruins. So there's always something to cheer for, and your excellence is expected every time that you take the field, and sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. It's the game's pretty tough. So I think that's probably the biggest difference is just the way people view that team and that sport. And if you're struggling, it's hard for them to cope with it. But it also makes you better whenever you're really good. The following's really, really good. When you're really bad, the following's still there. It's just it's a lot of negativity going around. So it's you got to find a way to deal with that. But other than that, I think it taught me a lot of things. It taught me a lot about the game, about myself, and you have to persevere through a lot of stuff.
Something's been getting a lot of traction in some areas, less so for me as an umpire. I umpire high school ball. A lot of people listen to the show know that. But are you in favor of an electronic zone? Do you like that human aspect where you get maybe a little bit of love on the outside or the inside corner, and for hitters that low curveball that is crossing at the knees but getting dug out isn't getting called because it looks like that? Are you in favor of it, or do you like where it is right now?
No, I mean it would definitely take away from the pitching side of it, because these guys now that step in the box, you have second basemen hitting 25, 30 home runs in a year, and if you take away that little part of the outside part of the plate that the ball might touch the outside corner but might not. And that if that gets called a strike, that's sort of where we can embrace and try to throw the ball there. If it's electronic, the ball's going to have to be in a zone. The zone's not really big anymore, and it's already hard enough to throw to it as it is. But yeah, there could be a couple of different ways you could go about it, but I don't think the electronic zone's the answer to it.
Thanks, Clay.
You got it.
So, I love it, right? He was not stressed out where he was going to go. He was going to find the right fit. And as you were saying, I think he found a really good fit. And he said it, right? Once he got picked up by Arizona, things fell into place. He went 7-2. He had an ERA of 2.01. Granted, it was 98 innings pitched, but that's really, really good to see from a guy like from Clay Buchholz.
Well, and let's not forget he started in 16 games for Arizona. Went 7-2. Those no decisions. Not really his fault.
Sure.
A lot of those are games where he came out of the game with a lead, and the bullpen lost it for him.
Right. The struggles manifested themselves with his start.
And we've seen the struggles in the bullpen. We've seen the difficulties that the Diamondbacks have had with their relief pitchers. And so I think for him, the biggest key, the biggest indicator of his success in Arizona is that 2.01 ERA. Obviously the guy's not giving up a bunch of runs in his starts. And I think, honestly, if the Blue Jays can keep him healthy, right? Because he had that elbow injury in 2015. He had surgery in 2017. He was signing. He was in a minor league deal, right? Then he finally came to the Diamondbacks, where he was healthy. He flourished a little bit. If the Jays can get him as a healthy Clay Buchholz, ready to start a season, ready to start 30 games, I think that we're going to see Clay Buchholz do really good things in Toronto.
I think so. He had a long career in Boston. Won a World Series in 2013. Came in late in 2007, but he was not on the World Series roster, so no ring there. But you mentioned this before the show happened. That was a bleeping crazy rotation at that time.
Yeah.
Right. You had guys like Lackey. You had Josh Beckett. You had John Lester. You had Clay. You had two guys that had thrown no-hitters with Boston in that rotation. Beckett's, of course, coming when he got traded to L.A. in his last year. But, you forget how good he could have been. His ERA is close to 4, but he had 2 all-star years where he went 17-7, and he went 12-1. Respectively, that 2013 year, he went 12-1. Granted, it was in 16 games, but his ERA was a 1.74.
Right.
Last year, his strikeout to walk ratio was a 3.6, which is, far and away the best of his career. Or I'm sorry, second best of his career. His best in 2015, he had a 4.65 K to walk ratio in 18 games. But you're looking at a guy who's only been over 20 games 3 times. 16, one of the highest he's been in. I try to keep it as impartial as possible. But getting to know him this past year, having known Bud for a couple of years, I've told you I saw Clay with his family as he finished up a round, and there's something really cool about seeing this little blonde-haired boy just wanting to have his dad, right? About 4 or 5 years old, wanting to just hug his dad, and Clay just seeing these guys outside of the game and seeing the just people, right? Having a family, it was really cool. And he is a very gracious guy. And I will say, with a lack of impartiality, I hope he kills it this year. I hope he does absolutely fantastic. He deserves everything that comes to him. He's a great dude. Very quiet, but very, very kind, very gracious. And I hope he and Bud both kill it. And I love they both happen to be on the same ball club. So hopefully I get a chance to go out and say hey to both of them. On a note that is way more unfortunately negative. Salvador Perez, diagnosed with UCL damage, Tommy John surgery recommended by him, becoming one of another big-name position player to have Tommy John surgery. We won't spend a lot of time on this one, man, but, I mean, this is becoming really kind of just things are beginning to change in baseball. I don't know why mechanics are different, or if it's just the immense amount of playing time that these guys do in the offseason and to get to the major leagues. But we have seen a lot of big names have TJ surgery, him being the next one. And with as bad as the Royals were last year, it is not going to help their standing in either of our picks as we get ready to get into the AL Central here coming up on the show.
Right. Yeah, no, this is not good. This is probably the worst news that they could have at this point, because he's the only name that they have left on their lineup. And man, I don't know what it is either. I told you I talked to the baseball coach at the high school here where I teach, and he was telling me about a kid who he throws from the elbow, right? Threw from the elbow. Strong arm, good kid, played third base, but right as he was getting ready to graduate, the elbow just gave up on him.
Right.
And I've noticed this a lot. I've seen these guys, what's his name, for the Dodgers that had Tommy John last year.
Were you?
No.
Seager.
Seager, who had Tommy John last year.
Talking position guys, and I go pitcher.
Right. So, but again, you see them, and they're whipping that elbow. They're whipping around from that elbow, right? And they almost look like a pitcher. And they're doing that to get speed on the ball, right? And it catches up with them.
Which is weird, because a lot of times that speed isn't necessary. And it's almost the need to go through the same motion to not make an error. That
guy's running down the line at about 20 miles an hour, maybe 20 miles an hour, 18, 20 miles an hour. If you throw the ball 50 miles an hour, you're throwing the ball twice as fast as you can run.
Yeah. To me, and I see this a lot in youth games, and I get they're still young, but, to me, and you have been closer to the game in a managerial and a coach's role than I have, and it's a role, honestly, I want to do at least once just to see the game from that perspective. But it seems that so many young pitchers, I see it in high school a pretty fair amount, do not use their legs to their advantage. Right. Their legs are just there for a stride. They are not pushing off and using their legs to generate force coming forward to add speed to the ball. Everything is generated by the shoulder and the elbow. And it's why we have seen such a massive uptick in injuries. Why I've seen a couple of guys here who have major league aspirations have issues. Carter Stewart, obviously the top pick of the Braves this past year, went to Eastern Florida State College with my friend Jason Arnold, who is now their manager there. Just broke the school strikeout record in a game. I think 16 Ks in a game. Right. But had kind of an elbow and some arm issues that had the Braves nervous, and he chose to go to Eastern Florida instead of signing with the Braves and maybe getting surgery. We see these things. Right, and so the issue for me is, Salvador Perez is young. Hopefully this is a guy that's going to, he's an all-star guy. Maybe he's going to bounce back from this. I hope he does. I really, really do. But I'm worried because, again, what are they doing now? What are the Royals going to do without Salvador Perez? Even if they find a catcher who's not same thing last year, finishing last. Well, yes, obviously. But even if they find a catcher who's not a defensive liability, which I really think is – could Wieters find himself here on a one-year deal? That's what I'm saying.
if they can find a catcher who's not a defensive liability, they're never going to replace the bat in that position. Not Salvy Perez's bat.
Absolutely not.
So I'm a little worried about the Royals, and I'm worried about Salvy Perez. I really am looking for Salvy Perez to bounce back from this.
Well, remember I called you last year when we thought he'd blown his knee apart.
Right.
And luckily didn't have an extensive knee injury. So this is the second year in a row where he has come close, and finally this year has a potential season-ending injury. He has not met with Dr. Andrews or whomever will do the procedure if it needs to be done. I would assume Dr. Andrews, but it is expected that he will have to go through Tommy John surgery.
Right.
So that brings us to our breakdowns. We are into the AL Central. That seemed like the most fitting spot to start was with Salvador Perez. And we get to touch on the Cleveland Indians, the Minnesota Twins, the Chicago White Sox, the Detroit Tigers, and the Kansas City Royals. That is the way that they finished last year. I'm sorry, the Tigers were ahead of the White Sox last year, I should say. Man, this is going to – again, to me, this is going to be the worst division in baseball. I don't think there's really any way around it. Since I went ahead and led off last week, I invite you, if you are ready, please. The floor is yours for what you see the AL Central being.
All right. Well, I see the AL Central as the Indians' division to lose.
Yeah. I'm curious. Before you get there, if the White Sox had signed Harper, would it have changed your standings dramatically to the point of where the Indians might have lost the division?
No.
Okay. I mean, we never talked about it so in depth that I was curious.
To be honest, I have the Sox in third place, but a distant third place.
I think the White Sox would have been second had Harper been there. That's where I don't think that there was enough with Chicago to have them beat the Indians, but I would have had them probably in second had Harper signed.
So here's what I got. I got the Indians in first place, obviously.
Yep.
At 90 wins.
Okay.
I think that's generous-ish.
I went 87 and 75 with some of the losses that they accumulated with letting guys go. Getting Carlos Santana back wasn't that impressive to me. I went 87.
I like the Tyler Olson pickup. I think he's going to help out of their bullpen. But Carlos Santana was their only real big name pickup. Which meant getting rid of Encarnacion. So it was kind of an odd, really weird. Let's not forget that they also lost Yonder Alonso, Yandy Diaz, Michael Brantley. Yeah.
And Jose Ramirez, there's no guarantee Ramirez has another AL MVP type year this year.
Right. So I have them at 90 and 72.
Okay.
Following closely behind them, I have the Minnesota Twins, who pick up Scope. Right. Not real close. Okay. No, 78 and 84 I have the Twins at.
Yes, sir. Right here. 78-84. I had the exact same thing written down. Yeah, absolutely.
78 and 84 is where I have the Twins. I like the Scope pickup. I like the Scope pickup, but the loss of Nick Anderson and Robbie Grossman, I think, is gonna.
Yeah, I feel like they lost enough and then signed enough back where they're just going to go ahead and chalk it to last year.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, exactly. Cool. Okay. Easy peasy there.
I got number 3. I got the Chicago White Sox. I got them at 64 and 98.
I put them at 69 and 93.
All right. So we're about 5 wins. About 5 wins off.
I thought that if Giolito can get better, I like the addition of Ivan Nova. I think Nova can be there with Yonder. Castillo and McCann, both at the catcher position, gives them, I think, a pretty nice depth at catcher. Tim Anderson should be better. Yohan Moncada should really be coming into his own. That really should be his team. He was traded by the Red Sox to the White Sox to become the face of that franchise. Right. And, man, I think John Jay is a guy who's a quiet, kind of small role player, but I think he brings a nice veteran piece to that ball club. That I thought they could be at least a little bit better. Maybe 7 wins is a little bit over the top, but I wanted to go a little crazy with them. I think that they're starting to find what they should be.
I like the Nova pickup. I really do. I like the Yonder Alonso pickup, and I do like James McCann. I think he's a better choice than Narvaez, whoever the catcher they gave up. He's a prospect catcher that they gave up, who I think was probably going to end up as their second or third guy.
Okay,
but the good thing about the White Sox is, despite all of the trades that they've made that have required them to give up prospects, they still have a really strong farm system, and that's going to help them, I think, this year.
Yeah,
but not enough to get them into that second place talk. I don't even know that Bryce Harper would have been enough to get them into that second place talk for me. I think they're a good 8 or 10 games behind the Minnesota Twins, despite Bryce Harper.
And I get 69 wins might be overshooting it, but at some point the White Sox have made enough moves with the Eaton deal, with the sale deal, and what's kicking them right now is that Michael Kopech is with that Tommy John surgery is going to miss this year. Kopech has the potential to be a young man's, or a poor man's Noah Syndergaard. A guy who had that long, could throw 100. I think he threw, 112 with like a running start and just, fired it. So, a really strong arm, impressive stuff. I watched him in the fall league a couple of years ago. To me, the key, and we mentioned this prior to the show, the big key here is the fact that the White Sox are going to have to try and lock up as quick as they can before it gets too crazy. They've got to find a way to get a hold of Jose Abreu and keep him with that ball club.
Right.
He's 32 years old. He has kind of been the top guy. 22 homers last year, 33 the year before. Hit 304 in 2017, 265 in 2018. I think that is a piece they need to get a 4 or 5 year deal in place with to have.
They need to lock him up. Yeah, they definitely need to lock up Jose Abreu. Yeah,
agreed.
So at number 4, I have the Detroit Tigers. Tigers are coming off back-to-back 98-loss seasons. Miguel Cabrera, in my opinion, is the linchpin here. So if Cabrera can stay healthy, I think they have an opportunity to play for 4th place. They picked up Matt Moore, good pitcher. Jordy Mercer, good infielder. Tyson Ross, another good pitcher. But they give up Iglesias.
Too, right.
What's that?
Josh Harrison, too. It's like a base in the Pirates.
Right. But they give up McCann and they give up Iglesias in the infield and behind the dish.
Michael Fulmer, we don't know what the hell he is. He went
Victor
from
Martinez,
Rookie of the Year top to just
right. And Victor Martinez leaves also from his DH role, which I think Miggy's got to step into that role. Realistically, I don't know how much longer Miggy can play first base. He's starting to get injury prone. He's starting to get older. I'd like to see him swing the bat more, but I have them not improving. I have them declining by 4 games. I have them at 60 and 102.
I have them at 63 and 99.
Okay, so we're pretty much.
I think that's negligible. I think plus or minus 2 or 3 is about a fair shot there. Because for me, honestly, the reason that I went to that number, I like my hope is that Fulmer comes back solid. That that you get Zimmerman. You mentioned the Twins. I think the grab was great for Minnesota. We're at a point now the Tigers are in full rebuild. So,
yeah, and that's what they should be focused on. They should be focused on rebuild and win and loss percentage or win and loss record. That's secondary.
Which sucks for Mickey, but that's the price. That's the price you might pay. It's the price Harper might pay by getting this huge deal, and Harper having no opt out and a full no trade clause. He is married to that team unless they are willing to eat a lot of money and find a spot for him.
Right. That brings me to the team that I don't think is going to be able to play for fourth place. That's the Kansas City Royals, right? They lose Kelvin Herrera. They lose Alcides Escobar. And now
they traded Moose. Obviously,
they traded Moose
last year, and he's not coming back.
And now
not what he should have been with the Cubs. Why he's a DH.
Now the injury to Salvador Perez and the biggest name they pick up in the offseason is Billy Hamilton.
Yeah, at this point, I think Whit Merrifield and Danny Duffy and Alex Gordon are really just trying out for trades. Yeah. I mean, honest to God, at this point, you are trying to find the best suitor for your top three guys to get them back. And Ned Yost, they gave him a one-year deal. God bless him. But I think at this point, Ned is probably best served to move on from Kansas City and find a team that can contend because he's been around long enough that he doesn't need to be there for a rebuild.
And I feel like they might be able to catch a little bit of lightning in a bottle with Whit Merrifield and Alberto Mondesi, who's a great infielder as well, a great potential infielder.
Yeah, young kid, a lot of pop, but we've seen some bonehead blunders at times too, and a batting average that has gone really low to really high.
Like a sine wave
last year. Who is he? Right? That's our question.
Right. So I have the Kansas City Royals without Salvador Perez at 49 wins and 113 losses.
And I'm 50 and 112.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, I want to stress this. We are not discussing these before the show at all. Now, we might talk, hey, this team I think, looks rough, or I like this addition. We have not pre-gamed any of these standings. We are finding out our standings live with you guys.
I think where we're really going to run into situations where you and I disagree are when we get to the American League West and the National League Central. I think that's where we're probably going to butt heads a little bit.
Yeah,
I think you're more enamored with. I think you're more enamored with the Cardinals than I am.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I just think that the Cardinals are a team that always finds a way, and the Athletics are a wild card. The Athletics are going to be the Rays of the West. They're a wild card who we, quite literally, who we don't know what the hell they're going to be this year.
Right.
But it's also why they're. I mean, it's also what makes the game just that much that much better to watch.
Right.
So we sit pat. The Indians will win the division with a winning record. You have them at 90 wins. I have them just shy. And you know what? I'm good with 87 to 90 wins. I think honestly, if we were to ask each other, that's probably the 3-game spread that we would give them. So
I'm going to tell you right now,
I'm great with that.
I'm going to tell you right now that for me, the linchpin is going to be
with Cleveland. You mean? Just so I know where we're going. Okay.
Right. The linchpin between 87 and 90 is going to be guys like Bauer and Kluber and
Carrasco.
What are they going to do? Right. And Carrasco. What are they going to do? Francisco Lindor. Right.
To me, honestly, I think
can Carlos Santana come
Salazar.
out?
Yeah, Salazar, who is sitting behind there. Obviously they got rid of Andrew Miller.
You have Joey Ramirez, right? Jose Ramirez still.
Right, yeah.
Who's Lindor and Ramirez are probably their two best position guys. But
yeah, I mean, even with Kipnis, you don't know what Kipnis is supposed to be. They talked about moving him to the outfield. I think Kipnis is a guy they want to move. They wanted to move him this year. It didn't work. I think that the desire is to move him out of Cleveland. Right. At this point, the question is, Tyler Naquin, can he be good? Right? Michael Brantley has moved on. I believe is in Houston now. But Naquin, we talked about him rookie of the year, in the rookie discussion a couple of years ago. He's 27 now. He's been in the bigs for 2 years since 2016. He hit 296 in 2016. Sophomore slump. Last year, only played 61 games, hit 264. Should be your everyday right field guy. Who is he? That, to me, is a huge question they have to answer.
Well, and I also think that who is Carlos Santana? Carlos Santana and Edwin Encarnacion are basically a wash. We've discussed that before. That they're the same hitter. They're essentially the same defender, although on opposite corners. But the question for me is Carlos Santana a better first baseman defensively and power-wise than Yonder Alonso? And my initial thought is no. And if that's the case, if Yonder Alonso is the better of the two, then I think the Cleveland Indians have made a mistake.
Well, right now you have Jake Bauers, though, who, in 83 games in the big leagues has hit 260. He's got a 277 MLB career stat, but last year was only a 201 hitter with Tampa Bay. So he's coming over from TB to Cleveland. That's probably going to be your main guy. To me, the key is right now you have a guy in Santana who can be both a DH and a first baseman, whereas Encarnacion was really just married to one spot. He was a DH. So I like the flexibility of the Santana grab, but the amount of people that just move through Cleveland boggles my mind. And when you hear Terry Francona say we're not going to get any worse, it's just kind of crazy.
Just look at the names: Encarnacion, Josh Donaldson, Yonder Alonso, Yandy Diaz, Michael.
Well, JD's a different.
I get that. I get he's a question mark, and he's going to be a question mark for the Braves as well. He's a name, right? He's one of those big names that have cycled through this team. Every single one of their subtractions that I've looked at has been a name. I mean, even Michael Brantley is a name.
Yeah.
And, that hurts.
I'm with you at the end. We'll see what Brad Hand does as a closer. The overall strength of that bullpen is gone. Jan Gomes being gone.
Can Corey Kluber compete for the Cy Young in 2019?
Well, my easiest answer is if DeGrom could, Kluber can. Because to me, he's playing on a team that has no business being in an actual pennant race conversation, but it is based on the division they play in.
Right.
So
they're going to win this division based on the fact that
absolutely
3 of the 5 teams, maybe 4 of the 5 teams, are going to end this season with losing records.
3 of the 5, I think all, but 3 of the 5 are an almost full blown rebuild. With, to me, the White Sox. Well, the White Sox are not. The White Sox are in build. I think that's a fair statement there. They have a foundation. They're trying to go ahead and create a structure. Is how I see them. The Tigers and the Royals are in full-blown rebuild, and the Twins are a team that can't admit they need to break it apart.
So here's my big question about the American League Central. Have we seen –
finish it out for us, man. What you got?
Can you think of another time when we've seen a team that has been – that was in the position that the Indians are now, where they're not a good enough team to consider as actual contenders, but they're going to win their division every year because everybody else in their division is terrible? The Cardinals come to mind, right? But at the same time, even when the Cardinals were winning 90 games, once they got to the playoffs, they were contenders.
Yeah, you're going to make me actually go back and do some research live as we finish the show, because the name that I want to say, and I'm looking to see if I'm right before I go ahead and I spew it out there, is the name I wanted to say was the Texas Rangers. Back in
I was going to say AL West.
Yeah, and the Angels were 10 games behind them. But even then, the Angels finished at 86 wins. That's probably that's the last team I can really.
I I feel like a few of those postseason Rangers runs were really just a team.
Probably the best was the Rangers in 2010, where they were 90 and 72, and the nearest team was the A's at 81 and 81. Mind you, the Astros were still a National League team at that point. But aside from that, man, that's really hard for me to come up with a team.
I think this is relatively unprecedented, where we have a team that now I think 3 years in a row we've said is only going to win that division based on the fact that they're the only team who's going to have a winning record.
Yeah, I mean, at least as far back as I can recall, and as we talk, I'm looking kind of through the last.
The Detroit Tigers at one point may have fit that bill.
Yeah, back in what 20? That was 2012. I'll look at 2012.
Maybe not 2012 when they made the World Series one, but like 09, 10, 11.
The White Sox were 3 games behind them in 2012. Actually,
wow.
Almost every division had at least 2 teams.
That's right, because that's when the White Sox had Chris Sale.
Yeah, every division that year had 2 teams above 500, almost above 90 wins.
So we're seeing what we're really seeing here is we're seeing sort of an unprecedented situation with the Indians, where the Indians are now looking down the barrel of their 3rd consecutive year of winning a division that they have going into a playoffs that they have no business being in.
Honestly, the last year that really comes to mind beyond that is 2017 in the NL East.
Okay.
Where I believe that's probably the easiest one. I'm saying that as I'm pulling up the year with that as I think about it. Yeah, the Nationals finished 20 games above the Miami Marlins for first place. The Marlins were 77 and 85. So that is probably the closest and only one I can think of off top of my head that really fits the bill.
All right, well, I think that pretty much rounds out our breakdown of the AL East, or excuse me, the AL Central.
Now, I will, just for you guys to know, Chris, I will have Chris's breakdown of the NL Central next week. He will not be here. But we have talked, and I will have how he will lay those guys out for you. And I will not look at it until the show happens. So he will send it to me in a Word file. I will leave it closed until the show is live happening, and you'll get my reaction to it. And I will call him all kinds of names which he can't respond to, which is the beauty of it all. No, just kidding. But in all seriousness, man, I know a lot of things are happening with you there. With everything at school, and you finally get a break, obviously middle of everything with college. But enjoy the time with your beautiful wife. Be sure to tell her hello. Have a couple of drinks for me, not on me. I'm not paying for any of the things you're going to imbibe in, but just think of me as you take a
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a big bar bill, man. I'm telling you right now.
That's why I made
before we get on the ship. Before we get on the ship, I'm putting $1,000 on my account. I don't know what that's going to look like when I get off the ship a week later. Oh, man. But before I even get on the ship, I'm putting $1,000 on the old account for the alcohol.
But guys, again, be sure to check out our Facebook page, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham. Of course, Twitter out at OO Left Field. I will go ahead and post both the videos, or on both pages, the video of Daniel Gibson hitting those 4 home runs. Also on our Facebook page, a really cool kind of an interview breakdown, face-to-face thing of Braves coach Ron Washington and Bill Ripken kind of doing some infield stuff. Wash is a guy who, regardless of what you think of his past personal struggles, smart baseball guy, really cool to watch. So have a look there, give it a like, give us a follow as well on Facebook and Twitter. And again, tell us coming up next week, how do you see the NL Central playing out? It could be a really, really jammed type of division as we find our way into October. So with all that, we finally have free agency damn near done. We are about 2 weeks now into spring training. There is nothing better than watching spring training baseball on my lunch break, and nothing better than Chris watching baseball while he's teaching. Not saying that's for real. Don't call the school board, but it might be real.
Call them. What are they going to do? Fire me?
Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Be sure to check out thegruelingtruth.net for all your sports-related needs. The Underwear Olympics, of course, happening in football. The Combine going on as we speak. Check that out as well. And the NFL Draft, about a month and a half away, right around the corner. And Mike Goodpasture and those guys will have all you need. Also, before we head out, last thing, I will be on Survive and Advance, one of the live Grueling Truth shows that we do with our producer and owner, Mike Goodpasture, each week, talking baseball. That is slated for every Thursday. I will let you guys know ahead of time on that, when that will be happening. But also, give Survive and Advance a listen. Support for us is always great. Thank you all so much for making us one of the most listened to podcasts on the Grueling Truth Network. Chris, any last words before we go ahead and get you the heck up out of here and start packing?
Nope.
All right, man. Get to the suitcases, get them out of the attic, get to work. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Catch you next week right here on Out of Left Field.